Yes. I remember that didn't used to be the case.
It did not.
Okay, we're live apparently. Thanks for heads up.
What a nightmare.
I'm going to stop talking about my air conditioning.
I mean, that seems
perfectly
in line with like everything that we've done as a podcast.
Yeah.
Should we introduce ourselves? Drew?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the News You Can Use reunion. I think Andre told me yesterday it's been 30 months since we last recorded, which is crazy, both that it's been that long and that anybody counted or cared that much. So this is great. This is really nice.
Yeah.
It's finally happening. Without Marge, unfortunately. She has like real life commitments and couldn't make it, so she's dead to me.
Yeah. Plus, due to sexism, we could only have one girl on the podcast.
Yes,
that's right.
True.
Yeah. But also regarding the name, didn't you just figure out, Drew, that what was it? United Canadian Podcasting Presents is the acronym for UCP?
Yeah, Unique Canadian Podcasting acronyms to UCP. So I think we should sue Jason Kenney for copyright infringement. And we can also now officially call this UCP Presents, Tim Hortons Presents, News You Can Use.
Yeah,
that's right.
Great.
And not have to worry about any copyright issues of our own with that.
Not at all.
That's right.
We will definitely not get any cease and desist letters.
Did you say your name, Drew? That's Drew.
Yes, right. Sorry.
That's James, and I'm Tannara.
Yeah,
that's right.
And we are 3/4 of Unique Canadian Podcasting Presents, Tim Hortons Presents, News You Can Use. And we are one of the OG Canadian leftist dumbass podcasts.
Yes, we pioneered the art form.
We are renowned for never preparing, speaking off the dome, having no idea what we're talking about, or rather having kind of an idea of what we're talking about, like half remembering a fact that we're pretty sure is kind of true. And then we ceded ground to podcasts that care about what they're doing and research, like Alberta Advantage.
Listen, like some podcasts like to do preparation and like, script things and look stuff up, but like we deal in vibes. And vibes are key.
We're the vibes podcast.
Yes, we are.
I think like when Andre asked us to do this, we just like immediately concluded at the get-go that we weren't going to prepare for this at all. But now you can see this is Muggsy. This is our new cat.
Good.
What's
amazing.
Up, buddy?
I love this cat.
Our other one is just over there in a sunbeam, but he's pretty antisocial. So,
oh yeah, you guys still have sun right now.
Yeah, it's great.
It's fucking dark out here. I'm like literally looking at the moon through my window.
That also reminds me. Should we do a quick intro of where we are and who we are and what we're doing?
I guess so. Yeah.
Probably.
Tannara, in the principle of anti-sexism, do you want to go first?
Making amends for not allowing Marge to be on. Just kidding. Right. Drew was correct. Marge is very busy. She gave us her blessing to do this. Just have to drop the act for a split second.
Yes.
Because I don't want to malign James and Drew as being sexist.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm an ally to my male friends. I try to be. But yeah, I'm
the most allyship.
I'm in Saskatoon, which is a change from when we last recorded. I was in Toronto. I've moved back to my hometown, and I'm really enjoying it. I love it here. It's a beautiful city. It's got problems, as everywhere does, but it's pretty great. I like it here.
Nice. What are you doing?
Oh yeah, I'm doing a PhD in history at York University in Toronto, and right now I'm doing some sort of fill-in work with QP here.
Nice.
Sweet. Nice.
Drew, who are you? Where are you? What are you? What are you doing?
Those are all really good questions that I've been grappling a lot with in the last few months. But yes, I'm Drew Brown. I'm here in scenic St. John's, Newfoundland. When last recorded, I was but a humble freelancer for a number of digital publications across Canada, but now I am the editor-in-chief of The Independent, which is much more fancy than it sounds. Or it sounds much more fancy, I guess, than it is.
No, it's much more fancy than it sounds.
Yeah.
It's all country clubs and dinners with the mayor.
Yes.
But the Independent is also a digital media outlet, correct?
Yes, we are a entirely reader-funded, progressive digital media outlet in Newfoundland and Labrador. We've grown quite a lot since I started a few years ago. It's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and I think this is election number 5 in the 2 years that I've been running this by myself. So it's real good. Plus the pandemic has made things really fun. But yeah, it's everything's pretty on the up. You guys did like the academic author stuff. I did in the grind in the industry. And I've now perfected 1,000-yard stare because I've seen some fucking shit.
Well, much respect. Where, if people want to check out The Independent, or even better yet, donate, where do they go to find that?
Right, asking for money. You can check us out at the theindependent.ca. We're currently, we just started rolling out our St. John City election coverage. So I got a reporter, Elizabeth Whitten, to interview 27 out of the 30 people running for St. John City Council this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did the other 3 refuse, or was it just?
So like one guy just like didn't respond to any email requests at all, which if you take a look at his picture is kind of self-explanatory. Godspeed to you, Raymond Penton. Another guy, Art Puddester, who is a former ward councillor, old school dude, was defeated in the last election, is running again. He stopped responding to our interview requests when we told him he wouldn't get the questions in advance. And
that's journalistic integrity there.
They try. And right, there's another candidate, Steve Parsons, who was unable to make time for an interview during the before our deadline. So, which is really unfortunate because I actually really would have liked to talk to him. He seems like a real interesting guy. Would have been a really good interview. But even online publications have deadlines.
Yeah, definitely.
So true.
Did not seem to understand when he got really mad at me on Twitter.
Something that everyone watching should know. Even online publications have deadlines.
Yes, it's true.
So carry that forward in your life.
Please respect us. It's real.
We're real too. James, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Where are you at?
I'm in Winnipeg still. I'm also doing a PhD in geography, which is not nearly as real or cool a discipline as history, but
I feel like history and geography, I'll hold myself back from getting into a whole thing based that like comes out of having done like all of my reading for my big comprehensive exams. But
congrats.
The Coles Notes, so Canadian podcasting. Anyway, the short version of it is that history and geography started out as pretty much the same discipline and then diverged. I think when geography wanted to be like sciencey science and history was still sort of vibing, which is what history does. History is a discipline of vibes.
Yeah, I'm several years into like geography grad studies and still don't have a great grasp on what it is, aside from like space and place and nature and stuff. But nevertheless, that's what I'm doing. Got really lucky to get several years of funding to be in this program, which is super comforting. Obviously, after that funding runs out, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I don't need to think about that yet. And then I'm doing some writing and just hanging out with my cats and my partner. So yeah, so things are all pretty good.
Nice.
But yeah, I guess one of the reasons that this occasion is being called is because in addition to the widely covered St. John municipal election, there's also a federal election going on, which we should probably acknowledge.
I mean, people want to hear about the St. John's municipal election. How did we both botch that word?
I don't know. I feel like I've said it like quite a few times in my life, but it's just it's the pressure, it's the intensity of being on air. Does anyone have any thoughts on on this election?
Yes, I have one big thought, and it's like the only thought that I think about when I think about this election, which is that I am very mad that there's not like an officially publicly recorded way to spoil your ballot or write-in candidates. I was complaining about this in a group chat, and somebody said that within Elections Canada, they do report spoiled ballots. I didn't look into that because we promised we weren't going to do research, and I'm true to my word. I'm a woman of honor, so I haven't verified that.
So you're angry about something that might actually not be an issue?
It depends. Okay. It might be less of an issue, but I feel very confident that in some countries or jurisdictions, they not only record things like spoiled ballots and write-in candidates internally, but they also make them publicly available.
Oh, okay. So that's the difference.
And they definitely don't do that in federal elections in Canada. So at best, if I were to go in and spoil a ballot, it would be like people within Elections Canada would take note of it. Right. And at worst, nobody would notice except for the one person who looks at my ballot.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So just like a question about spoiling ballots, and Drew, interrupt if you have any special insights on the process. Why would you stand in line for a whole length of time to spoil your ballot rather than just like not showing up at all? Is it like the act of protest if it was being registered and reported on, or?
Yeah, okay. I think for me it would be two things. The larger thing would be what you said. It would be that I would want to be on record, like to register, not just that I don't care that there's an election or that I was busy or forgot or something, but like
you specifically showed up and said, like, fuck this process, and or I don't know how to fill the ballot.
But like if you could write in a candidate or like a couple words, that would be even better, because then you could be like,
there should be like an other option where it's like other, and then it's like, if other, please explain. And you
have So the other reason for me, which is not the main reason, but I think does exist in some recesses of my brain, is that I think I just feel guilty about the idea of not voting.
Okay.
Even though
the indoctrination's powerful.
Yeah, like there's no party in my riding that I feel strongly enough about that I want to vote for them. There's no party that in my riding that represents my interests and that I have any confidence will like fight for those interests.
Is just out of curiosity, is there a federal party which may exist like that just may not be running in your riding?
You know, there's a lot of parties across the country, and they span many elements of the political spectrum that maybe aren't covered by the main political parties. Hypothetically, very hypothetically speaking, in a couple of the ridings that I lived in while I was in Toronto, you know, you have parties, you have your regular mainstream parties, you have your Green Party, you have, you know, the Communist Party of Canada, you have some other parties sprinkled in there. And usually in those ridings, when it came around to election time, I could find a political party that I felt really spoke to my interests, even if I didn't have any expectation that they were going to win. I could feel good about casting my ballot and showing that I support them. And that's not the case, unfortunately, in my riding here in Saskatoon this time around. And yeah, I still feel like, even though I don't want to cast a ballot for anyone, I still feel like not casting a ballot, it just feels wrong to me. Right. So I really wish that I could go in, and like Drew said, it would be great if there was an option where you could just mark other and then like write in something. I saw an article on CTV, I think last week, that was actually about like voter dissatisfaction and whether there should be some sort of option like that. But the weird thing is, in that article, they only suggested one thing that could be added to the ballot. And the thing that they were talking to experts about was, should we add a none of the above option? And then all these experts were like, well, I don't really think so, because, you know, that might encourage people to pay even less attention to who they want to vote for if they know they can just vote for none of the above, which I don't know if that's actually true, because you still have to go out to the effort to vote for none of the above. So I feel like you would have to feel pretty strongly about registering that. But I also feel like, why is that even the only thing they were talking about? Why would you not discuss, like, we should have a write-in line where people can explain briefly, or say, like, here's the name of a person that I think should have won? I don't know.
I feel like if you're going to have a none of the above option, you have to have an all of the above option too.
Yes. I think they're really just scared that none of the above would just win every single riding.
That's true.
That would 100% rock.
What would happen?
Oh, and then maybe you could just like vacate the riding, and they have to have like a special by-election where good candidates have to run.
But speaking of like things to do with your vote when you don't know where to put it, I'm always a big fan of like voting for like long shot, fringe, like crank candidates. Like, I love cranks. I think crankdom is a very important part of our political tradition, and I always support cranks all the time where possible. As long as they're not like scary cranks, like
far right cranks or whatever.
Yeah, like the entire like People's Party of Canada.
Sure.
But like, so like in Edmonton in 2015, my riding was like a toss up between, like it was like either going to go Liberal or NDP, and I didn't particularly love either of those options at the time. So I remember like standing in line at the polling station. I was like, what the fuck am I going to do? So I was like quickly just sort of like research. There were a whole bunch of like weird independents on the ballot as well. And there was like one guy in particular who was like, I reject the legitimacy of Parliament, and if elected, I will immediately, like, I promise to like never serve. I will like never show up. I will like immediately like vacate the seat and like whatever. I was like, this guy sounds awesome. I'm 100% voting for him. Unfortunately, he did not win.
Ugh.
What are you going to do?
See it.
It was really tragic. It's the greatest disappointment of my life.
So just for like people who might be interested in the process, currently, if one wants to spoil a ballot, how does one go about that? Like, do you just deface it, or what do you do?
Yeah, like, I mean, you have a variety of options if you want to spoil your ballot, ranging from like, you can write on it, you can write in any number of different things. You can just, like, even if you just like, if you put the X in the wrong place, you've technically spoiled your ballot. And yeah, I guess they do keep a record of this internally. I'm not 100% sure about Elections Canada, but I know like Elections Newfoundland and Labrador does, because in the 2019 election in Labrador West, Jordan Brown won for the NDP there by a 2-vote margin. I think it was originally like 5 or 7 votes or something, so which like triggered an automatic recount. So I remember like in the Supreme Court, they like took all the spoiled ballots and they like went through them one by one to try and determine like what the intent of each ballot could have been. So we're like going through, they pulled and be like, okay, like this one, like the X was just like off the entire thing. Like this doesn't count. This one said someone wrote like yes by next to Jordan's name. Let's count that as like, you know, and then someone would be like, objection, that could also be a sarcastic yes by, that could be no. So it's like the lawyers would kind of like go back and forth. So like shit like that.
What happened? Did he win?
He did win. It was like 2 votes, I think, in his favor. Like one, yeah, like someone had drawn a bunch of stars around like somebody's name, which I think wound up counting. I think the yes by wound up counting too. I think someone wrote fuck that wound up not counting tragically, because no one could determine if that was like fuck yes or like fuck this guy, or you know, it's hard to tell. But it's really cool to like, you know, sit in a courtroom and have all these like really high powered lawyers going through and like arguing over the meaning of like the placement of the word fuck on a ballot.
Dope.
Unfortunately, they don't count these stats to like the public, which I think that they should. Like, I think they should like Elections Canada should definitely give you an option of writing like fuck this and like counting that, you know, like in the vote.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right? I think we need to make the system better for people who care enough about it to like show up and express their opinion on the ballot, but like dissent from the entire process at the same time. This is my considered opinion on this subject.
Well, you're like of the political science discipline, so I think you have like the most authority to speak on this. So
you want to talk about vibes disciplines? Yeah, vibes, for sure.
If you ever decide to go back to school, you could study spoiling ballots as a research topic.
For me, it's a toss-up between the intellectual history of Joey Smallwood,
of course,
or the history of the car in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Nice.
That would be cool, but also like that's a lot of work and fuck school.
Absolutely.
So true.
Yeah. I'm going to stay in the wonderful and very lucrative field of independent journalism.
Do we have any other thoughts about the election at all, other than that there should be a registration of spoiled ballots, as well as more options to spoil?
I mean, I think we should also acknowledge like this is a really stupid election. It makes no sense that it's happening. I still haven't figured out like why, other than this is like an amazing own goal by Justin Trudeau on himself, because the Liberals didn't expect that anybody would not be super jazzed to vote for them again, and they had like no plan B in case like what happens if people are pissed off.
So cool.
It's it's really stupid. It's amazing. It's like this whole election happened. There was no point. It's gonna like go back to Parliament more or less the same thing that we left, except we might have a couple of fascists in there, and the bloc will be bigger, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's I don't know.
Why do you think that Justin Trudeau and his people around him didn't seem to envision that this might happen? Because like, I mean, I get that they are probably very dumb and whatever, but like, there's been a pandemic for the last year and a half. Economy is bad. People have lost jobs. Like, why would they look at all of those things and then go, people are probably really happy with the party that's been in power through all of that? That's how people's brains work.
I mean, it's like for a long time, that is kind of how the gambit worked. Like up until Nova Scotia, you know, if you called an election, people were happy with the pandemic response. They generally just reward you by voting status quo because people want to rock the boat, I guess, because shit's fucked up and nobody wants chaos during chaos.
Now that I'm thinking back, I'm remembering, because I have a goldfish brain and don't remember things unless I put in a concerted effort to do it. But now that I'm thinking back and remembering the first like year-ish of the pandemic, there was a lot of popular support for like the governments that were doing their best and like medical professionals and stuff. But the polarization, to use a popular media catchphrase, that has happened around like vaccines and masking and healthcare professionals and politicians has been increasing very markedly for several months. So it's like, even if the Liberals were like, okay, if we call an election in summer 2021, we'll win because everybody likes us. It's like, that hasn't been the common sense view of our political landscape for several months, I feel like.
No, like, this is where I'm going to pull my Eastern alienation card. And if somebody in Ottawa had just paid attention to anything happening on the East Coast of the fucking country for the last like 8 months, they would have realized that like that's not really how it works anymore. So like, I mean, so in the Newfoundland Labrador 2021 election, when we did our pandemic election, they called it, assuming that like, you know, minority government converted into like a massive majority, and all the projections had them like sweeping the House, winning like 34 or 40 fucking seats or whatever. Until in an amazing like act of God, like the week before the voting day, we had a big COVID outbreak and the entire province had to shut down, and they canceled the election, and then we all had to do mail-in ballots, and everything was extended for like 6 weeks of limbo, and it broke my brain. But what happened then is basically like the government only got like the bare minimum necessary for majority, mostly by beating like 2 party leaders who were profoundly unpopular and one guy in Mount Pearl who nobody liked. But otherwise everything stayed the same. So it was like that was kind of like, I think in retrospect, like that was like the turning point of like, this is actually not a sure gambit, and like if you just kind of assume you'll win government and don't do any other preparation, you may actually get fucked. And then in the course of like, one thing I don't understand is like why they didn't wait and see what happened in Nova Scotia before pulling the trigger on the federal election, because they called it like 2 days before the Nova Scotia vote came back, which was like kind of like the worst case scenario, where you have a government that's like, we're just going to get reelected because we're good at COVID response, and then they got annihilated with a surprise Tory majority. Which like maybe if they had waited to see how that played out, they wouldn't have just like done the same gamble and also nearly almost lost, except in this case, like, I mean, who knows what's going to happen, although it does sort of seem that like the Conservative Party is extremely fucked up, and Aaron O'Toole didn't really pull off the used car salesman thing he kind of needed to do to get people to vote for it. And also, I guess we can all see what's happening in Alberta currently, and it turns out that like maybe you don't want these people running the government during a pandemic. I don't know. I'm so tired. Yeah.
It's just very confounding to me that they went ahead with it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, why did you think this was a good idea? I don't understand. I just wish that I could talk to like Justin Trudeau or Katie Telford. She's one of his high advisors, right?
Is she still there? I don't remember anymore.
I don't remember. Yeah, Gerald Butts is gone.
Yes, Butts is gone.
I think Katie Telford is still there. That's that classic news you can use research, baby.
Yes, exactly. The brand remains strong.
I mean, who fucking cares if Katie Telford is still there, other than like Katie Telford and Justin Trudeau? But like, none of us need to know if she's still there. My point is, I wish that I could talk to like
whoever's
3 key people who made this decision and just be like, what was going on, my guy?
Yeah, it's like my impression of like how the Liberal Party currently works is that like they just like sacked everybody who like would give constructive criticism, and sort of stacked it with like, you know, people with good credentials and excellent ass-kissing skills.
Awesome.
Because that's what happens when you're 5-6 years into a government. This is the party of consulting now, not the party of anything else.
That's so cool.
Yes. So I think that's kind of my just like knee-jerk assumption of like why we're in this mess, because there was nobody there to tell anybody this might be a bad idea, or like maybe we should wait, or maybe we should have a fucking plan B in case we call this election and everyone's not like super stoked for it. But you know, the fuck do I know, right?
Given that we have a few minutes left, maybe we should take the opportunity to promote or highlight some organizing things or some struggles which are actually somewhat inspiring to us, or that we think that people should look to. Do either of you have any that come to mind that isn't necessarily electoral related at this point?
Oh yes.
I can think of something. I think we have a guest joining us shortly.
Oh wow.
Sweet.
If you looked in the there we go. What's up?
Shit.
Muted.
Andre's muted.
Unbelievable.
Oh, hey guys, I didn't want to interrupt. Good, go ahead. I'm just going to hang out. I'm just going to say bye to you before you wrap completely.
Okay.
Yeah, please continue. Okay. James,
okay.
where you were. Yeah.
Organizing.
Yes.
Well, I know my union that I'm in as a TA at York is doing a lot of organizing, as many other post-secondary unions are, both like graduate student unions and faculty associations around the country, or at least I know for a fact that many of them in Ontario are. I would guess that many other ones are. But I hung up a picture shortly before we started this call with like
that's live broadcasting. Yeah,
that's
live Twitch stream.
Live broadcasting, baby. But yeah, there's like universities are just going hog wild with like the worst imaginable return to campus plans. York has been insisting for several months that everybody wants to be on person, which is like, yeah, everybody wants to be on person when COVID is not going to kill people. Like, yes, we all want to be in person, or most people want to be in person for sure, but not when COVID is still very much around. So anyway, there's like the vast majority of classes at York are in person. They had to delay the in-person resumption of classes. Like they had to have the first week of classes online because of COVID. And like, there's just a nightmare with like the vaccine proof app that you're supposed to upload to, but you can still get onto campus and move around even if you haven't done it. And then when students are in the classroom, you have no way of knowing if they have been vaccinated or not, because you can get on campus. And like one of the only really clear rules that I have heard repeatedly from the administration is like, you are not supposed to confront students if they're not wearing a mask in your class. You're not supposed to, and when I say confront, I don't mean like be rude. Yeah. I mean like you're literally not supposed to say, could you please put a mask on?
Yeah.
So, but then also like the university is really trying to intimidate all the TAs and faculty who are choosing to do things remotely right now, even though lots of students are contacting their instructors and saying, can we please not do this in person? So it clearly isn't coming from the students. It's a mess. It's a nightmare. But what am I trying to say? But luckily, there's a lot of organizing and some really good solidarity between QP 3903, which is the grad student and sessional lecturer union, and the faculty union. There's a lot of coordinating, I think, and some motions and stuff in solidarity. So that's been good to see. And I know that's happening at other universities in Ontario too.
Sweet.
Nice. Drew, how about you? Any struggles or things that you want to shout out?
Oh yeah. Right. So like this province is like having a meltdown. Everything is in the shitter. It's really cool. Big structural crisis, as you know, everywhere is happening, I guess. Although we got out of COVID mostly unscathed, so like all the other horrible things are just kind of happening in the background. But yeah, there's also a lot of like, because everything is so fucked up, there is lots of really cool and I think promising labor action that is currently happening. I know Both the nurses union and the paramedics are pretty much ready to like fight the provincial government because healthcare is like in total crisis here, non-COVID related. And I know that NAPE, the Newfoundland Labrador Association of Public Employees, just launched like a major organizing drive for like workplaces across the province, which is like really cool because it's like desperately needed here because working conditions in a lot of privately owned enterprises are fucking horrible. So it's cool to see like a union actually go out and encourage people to organize their workplaces. It's amazing, actually. Super jazzed about that. Hope it goes really well because like we definitely need it. Minimum wage just went up today to $12.75 an hour, which is great.
Love to see it.
Yeah, it's super. It's only $7 lower than what they pegged the living wage at like 3 years ago. So you know, everything's going great.
Sorry, because we got to wrap up in 4 minutes. James, really quick, what kind of organizing are you involved in Winnipeg?
Sorry, Drew. I haven't been like involved personally in a lot. Like we have this group called Winnipeg Police Cause Harm, which does work around obviously opposing police power and violence in the city. I've been like really busy with like personal projects, so I've been kind of not doing a ton for that group. But if people are interested, check out the Twitter or social media. But there's like a lot of other cool stuff happening in Winnipeg, as I tweeted about, and then I like very erratically delete my Twitter just because I hate Twitter. But I talked about how I think it was kind of like undervalued outside of Manitoba that some really dedicated organizing by many different groups resulted in the premier resigning and 5 really terrible bills getting withdrawn, including bills which would have eliminated all English-speaking elected school boards, that would have, like in Alberta and much of the U.S., criminalized like most land defense and picket lines outside so-called critical infrastructure, that would have further privatized liquor sales, all these sorts of things, and really dedicated organizing, including, surprisingly, from opposition parties, including the NDP and Liberals, along with unions and community groups, kind of came together to like oppose these bills. And all of that was really set off by the July 1st action, which toppled the Queen Victoria statue, led by Indigenous people, including groups like Red River Echoes, which is an amazing new group made up of like radical Métis members who are trying to just like fight against obviously colonialism in Manitoba. So like that kind of the falling of the statue kind of resulted in Pallister and a number of other like high-ranking figures making very public blunders, and by blunders I mean racist statements. And so all of that kind of like piled up and combined into this like pretty incredible thing where he resigned and the 5 bills were withdrawn. And that isn't like a permanent victory. Those bills could always be reintroduced in the future, but I think things like that are like pretty incredible signs that like that resistance and struggle is happening here. So yeah, that'd be the one that I would shout out.
And so I just want to observe as you guys wrap up here that one of the things I always loved about News You Can Use is just the kind of scope of it. With Tannara used to be in Toronto, but now in Saskatoon, James in Winnipeg, and Drew in Newfoundland, and Marge in Edmonton. It was just like always awesome. For viewers, I produced the show for like the last 30 episodes or something. So I mean, I loved it. So it's just so cool that you guys could come back and do this. Like I've just been like delighted, just enjoying the rough and tumble, you know, just effort to put on a good show. So like, thank you so much. If you guys ever wanted to do another one-off, we could put it out on the Harbinger Spotlight. And I just love hearing you guys talk about stuff, and also how you sort of anchor it in actual like activism and the work being done in communities and in your own cities. So you guys, thank you so much for appearing on the telethon, and this has been awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us, Andre, and thank you for all that you do and for all the support that you gave our podcast, and you continue to give podcasts across the country. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. You. Okay, guys, so get out there and vote. I think that's the most important thing I'm taking away from this conversation.
That's what we're telling everyone.
And also, Drew, thank you. I know you knew that White Claw was sponsoring this telethon. It's crisp, it's refreshing, it's a light drink. It's for people who want a light drink.
Big fan of the hard seltzer.
Okay, you guys, I'll see you later. Thank you again. Bye. Folks, that's Drew Brown, editor of The Independent in Newfoundland, at Tannara Yelland in Saskatoon, and James Wilt, author of Do Androids Dream of Electric Cars? An excellent takedown of Elon Musk and his ilk. Available now from Fernwood Books, Fernwood Publishing. And coming up next, we just have like an insane panel, including Alex Kosh from the Maple, Paris Marks, host of Tech Won't Save Us. Later, Kevin Tagabon from the Hoser will be joining Kai Nagata and I, who will be hosting the next panel. And then in the meantime, though, we're waiting for Emma and Eva to join me. They are the co-hosts of a new show coming to Harbinger in October called Gender Troubles. While we're waiting for them, though, I just want to remind you guys that it's telethon. If you can hit that donate button, that would be rad. We've done okay raising a little bit of money. We'd love it if you could just throw us a few loonies. If you're an American viewer, throw us a few greenbacks. We would appreciate it. Harbinger Media Network is a nonprofit that relies on zero corporate donations, dark money, anything like that. So anything you can offer, it would be really appreciated. But now I'm extremely excited to welcome Eva Espenshade. How do I say your last name? So you're on mute. Can you take off the mute?
It's Espenshade. It's kind of
Espenshade. Eva Espenshade, hi.
Hi.
And Emma, Eva is in Vermont in the United States. Emma Austin is in Montreal. Hi, Emma.
Hello.
You guys, it's so good to see you. Thank you for making some time to just check in and let the viewers know really quickly what Gender Troubles is all about. So I'm going to give like a super quick background because I already know your story. You guys graduated doing kind of a focus on gender studies and stuff like that. You were like, we want to continue learning and like educating other people, but we're not sure we want to go back to school right now. And so you launched Gender Troubles a couple months ago. And I love the show because I'm, like a lot of people, someone who doesn't know enough, I guess, about like the theory of feminism and the history of feminism and stuff like that. So maybe, Emma, tell me a little bit more. How did Gender Troubles come about?
Yeah, I mean, I think Eva and I missed each other. We had to I had to finish my last semester of school online, and I was like longing for sort of our school in-person vibe. And then, yeah, I wasn't sure about doing my master's. And then I attended a podcasting workshop that you hosted, Andre.
That's right, yeah.
And I was like, we could do this. So yeah, that was kind of just a way to let us be able to continue researching and diving into feminist history and movements and moments.
And Emma is one of the leaders at CUTV here in Montreal, a sort of legendary radical space for visual media. Eva, does that check out? Is Emma telling? Is that the case? Would you say?
Yeah, I was definitely missing being in Montreal because my visa expired and I got asked to leave the country. And so when Emma reached out about doing a podcast, I was just super excited. Because right now I nanny children and I can't really talk to them about my opinions on, second wave feminism and whatnot. So to be able to get to hang out with my friend and talk about that and share it with people was kind of something much needed in my life.
Totally. And so with the show, like one of the things that immediately struck me, which is why I reached out to you guys to come hang out with Harbinger, is it's warm, it's casual, but then it's also really, really grounded in something that you guys clearly have done your reading about and done your research about. So what kind of topics has the show covered so far, Emma?
We kind of started with like a very first wave, liberal feminism, suffragettes. And we've sort of been moving through history with major feminist movements. But then we also do offshoots. Eva just did a book review from a famous second wave feminist named Adrienne Rich. Or we talk about key terms like intersectionality or standpoint theory and kind of breaking down these very academic feminist terms into something that can be accessible and digestible.
Mm-hmm. Eva, tell us more about that most recent episode.
I read finally Adrienne Rich's kind of memoir theory of Woman Born, which is one of these essential gender study readings that I did not want to read because it was kind of exhausting. And I finally read it, well, most of it. And it's a lot about motherhood and kind of institutions of motherhood versus personal experience of motherhood and everything that's going on right now, in the States with the Texas abortion ban and, with the election here and your conservative leader being weird about choice, I thought it would be a good time to kind of talk about how different feminists think about motherhood, and how the stakes have kind of changed, but also we're kind of back to where we started when we wrote this book, which was like just after abortion had been legalized in the States. So.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, obviously it's an urgent time to sort of have these sorts of conversations publicly and in the discourse. And some other episodes talking about standpoint theory, neoliberalism, neoliberal feminism, the girl boss apocalypse. I feel like these are really like common things that a lot of people in their 20s or 30s or whatever think about a lot. So Emma, what are some other upcoming episodes that you guys have planned out at the moment?
Yeah, so our next episode is going to be on ecofeminism, which is kind of a more like niche feminist movement. Also kind of part of the radical movement. So that'll be interesting. And then I think we have plans to get guests on. Like I have a friend from Toronto who's a porn scholar. So we're going to kind of talk about like the porn wars and different diverging beliefs among feminists regarding porn. Yeah, I don't know. Eva, do you have any other ideas of what we're going to talk about?
I definitely want to talk about the wages for housework movement, which I think will tie in kind of to more kind of Marxist feminism. And as someone who does housework, like we all kind of do, I'm like, wow, she's really making some great points over here. I would like to be paid from the government to do housework. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else.
Well, what about like what's sort of more? Tell us a little bit more, maybe about the general vibe of the show, because you do book reviews, but you do conversations, but you do interviews. Yeah, tell us more about that.
I think I know personally, like I consume a lot of podcasts, and some of them are just kind of people chatting, and that's really great. But when you're talking about something like we're trying to talk about like different moments and movements in kind of like feminism, it can kind of get diluted. So I think something we were really focusing on is like having well-researched episodes and providing a reading list in the show notes of mostly like accessible free text so people can kind of continue into whatever we were talking about. Was important to not just have it be two people kind of, shooting the shit or whatever, right, which we can do for hours, but isn't necessarily the most interesting thing to listen to.
Yeah, and that's the vibe I got. It's just like it's definitely warm and it's chatty, and you guys have a nice, friendly, engaging way at the top of the episode, and then you just get into it, and then the listener learns a lot. Emma, anything else to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, we've started kind of adding a little like a beginning piece where we talk about like a moment in pop culture this week. So last week we talked about the Judith Butler interview in The Guardian that had a large section of it censored. And maybe this week we'll talk a little bit about Met Gala dresses. I don't know.
Yes, please.
I love that. Eva, anything else to add?
No, it's been really fun, and I feel like we're finally really getting into a groove. And so every podcast is better than the last. So
yes, our audio quality has been getting better every episode.
And I've been listening, and just just really waiting for the point where we can do this expansion with Harbinger, so we can formally bring you guys in. So it's all locked in now, which is one of the reasons I'm happy on this telethon to announce that I think early October we're just going to be let's do it. We're going to bring you guys on, Gender Troubles. We're going to bring Anti-Girl Boss Socialist Club, another sort of critique of neoliberal feminism, and Nora Loretto's Take Back the Fight. So it's going to be just a really awesome expansion. I'm so happy you guys are going to be part of our community. It's just super cool. So Gender Troubles is coming to Harbinger in October in an exceptional expansion featuring a trio of sensational shows exploring contemporary feminism from different perspectives. And you can find Gender Troubles wherever you get your podcasts. You guys, thanks a lot for stopping by the stream, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you
so much for having us.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye.
That's Eva and Emma from Gender Troubles. Super excited